We begin where all good sermons begin, with Facebook. Many of you saw Maria's Facebook post a few days back where she posted a picture of a children's See and Say toy, but instead of animals, musical instruments, or nursery rhymes, the choices were places to eat for dinner. Every single person needs that, don't they? Making decisions is hard, and this little innovative contraption makes it a whole lot easier. So whether we are alone or with a spouse or with our family, choosing the dinner spot is consistently a hard choice. Some couples go back and forth, agonizing over the logical reasons one place is better than the other. Families struggle because they love certain places to eat, but those places don't have chicken nuggets or fruit punch. And when you're alone, it feels like you've eaten at every place there is, and you just want something new. The problem is choice. There is an iconic scene in the movie The Matrix, wherein the main character, Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, meets Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne. Morpheus is trying to explain the Matrix to Neo, and then he will present Neo with a life-changing choice. See for yourself.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Doesn't every single decision we make feel like that? There's intense music in the background, there's lightning strikes, there's a voice in your ear that says, this is your last chance. You are not turning back from here. Every choice we make, we get nervous because we think we should have chosen something different. And so for Neo, he chooses the red pill. But immediately, I'm sure he began to wonder, should I have chosen the blue pill? Decisions are very difficult. And every choice we make, we immediately consider the alternative. Even simple decisions like chocolate or vanilla, dress shoes or casual shoes, soda or water, steak or vegetarian. I'm just kidding, I know you choose steak. Even decisions like how to respond to someone sneezing requires much thought and deliberation. Should you say, God bless you, invoking the Almighty and realizing that you don't have the power to bless, only God does? Or should you simply say, bless you, realizing that you are not God and cannot speak for God? Or are you one of those who can't follow the status quo? One of those third-party candidate-loving, can't choose between Democrat or Republican people who always responds with Gesundheit? Arguments can be made for each response, and in fact, some of you may now be questioning your usual response. The problem is choice. So far, we are talking only about simple and silly decisions that we don't lose sleep over and have already made up our minds about. What about difficult decisions? What about decisions that decide life or death? Not decisions about whether or not to move out of the way of an oncoming truck, but decisions that will decide whether or not you prosper in life or fail, whether or not you feel blessed or cursed. In Deuteronomy, God sets before the Israel people life or death, prosperity or adversity. The Israelites, who have been seeking the promised land for years, obviously want to choose life. However, they are not connecting the link between life and obeying God. To ignore God's commandments is to choose death. Not a physical death, but a death that is living life in the least successful and least hopeful of ways. To choose to obey God leads to a fruitful and prosperous life. Again, the problem is choice. Not the choice between life and death, but the decision to choose God's commandments over our own desires. If you make a small mistake, it's not going to ruin your life. But if you continue to make the same mistake over and over, it will eventually affect the quality of your life. That's how God's commandments work. If God says to avoid gluttony, then eating one double cheeseburger will not ruin your life. Eating a double cheeseburger every day for 15 years will. When I graduated high school, I weighed around 165 pounds. On average, I gained 10 pounds every year, so that when I graduated college, I weighed 205 pounds. Was this because I made one bad choice? Of course not. I made bad dieting choices almost every single day in college, and that affected greatly my quality of life. To choose life isn't avoiding all mistakes. To choose life is to learn from mistakes, not allowing them to multiply. When our scriptures talk about the sin of gluttony, it is not an attempt to guilt trip us. It is wisdom that tells us to choose life by living healthily. Then Jesus comes in and decides to gum up the works. As if God's commandments weren't enough, Jesus had to make them more difficult. Instead of not killing people, we can't hate them or call them fools, which will greatly affect some of your sports watching. Instead of don't commit adultery, now we should not look at or think about other people lustfully. No more divorce and no more swearing at all. But all these things still happen. People hate, lust, divorce, and go against their word, even when Jesus is this clear. So the question is, are all these people choosing death? William Paul Young wrote a fiction book called The Shack that became a New York Times bestseller. In his book, Mac, a tragedy and grief-stricken father, is searching for answers about God and life. Since this book is coming out as a movie in the next few weeks, I won't give much away. But in this story, God spends some time with Mac in person, in 3 persons to be exact, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. In one of Mac's conversations with the Spirit, they discuss mistakes, righteousness, commandments, relationships, and emotions. The Spirit mentions that people make mistakes, to which Mac replies, I don't want to make mistakes, a thought we all resonate with. Matt goes on saying, somehow it seemed easier to live with God when I thought of him as a demanding taskmaster. You see, Mac is struggling with the concept of grace and a relationship with an all-loving God, something we all struggle with. For Mac, it is easier to understand God when instead of a relationship, God just gives us a long list of what is expected of us. Cut and dry, we know what we have to do, plain and simple. But relationships are complicated. They're nuanced and unpredictable. It's impossible to measure a relationship and to know how to fulfill any perceived expectations. Unlike a structured list of rules, relationships are emotional. And everyone is afraid of emotions, including Mac's character. Mac asked the Spirit to help him understand emotions. The Spirit responds in a rather simple manner, saying, they just are. They are neither good nor bad. They just exist. The Spirit continues, paradigms power perception, and perceptions power emotions. Most emotions are responses to perceptions, what you think is true about any given situation. If your perception is false, then your emotional response is false too. So check your perceptions, and beyond that, check the truthfulness of your paradigms, what you believe. Just because you believe something firmly doesn't make it true. Be willing to re-examine what you believe. The more you live in the truth, the more your emotions will help you see clearly. So what is the truth? The truth is God has commandments, and Jesus expounded on them by expanding the understanding of those commandments. It is also true that God has called us to relationship, a relationship with God through Christ that is unpredictable and emotional. These two truths must be reconciled so that accurate paradigms can power our perceptions. How can we as Christ followers make sense of following God's commands while living in relationship with God? How can we choose life, which is to follow God's commandments, when we can never live up to them? The Spirit continues in the conversation with Mac, saying, the Bible doesn't teach you to follow rules. It is a picture of Jesus. While words may tell you what God is like and even what He may want from you, you cannot do any of it on your own. Life and living is in Him and in no other. My goodness, you didn't think you could live the righteousness of God on your own, did you? God's commandments, as listed in the Old Testament, have everything to do with how to handle sin and those who have sinned. On the other hand, Jesus' words in Matthew have everything to do with the prevention of sin. Both have everything to do with choosing life, and that, as William Paul Young puts it, is only found in God. Through Christ's life on earth, His death and resurrection, and by God's good grace, we have been called to a relationship with the Creator of all things. This relationship is greater than any commandment, greater than any paradigm, perception, emotion. It is greater than any choice. Every Old Testament commandment and every word of instruction Jesus ever spoke was to help us put human words and thoughts on what life with God should look like. And it is in our best interest to follow those words to the best of our ability, not because our relationship with God hinges on it, but because it is the best life God offers us and wants for us. Every day, every moment, you are given the choice of life and death, of following God's commands or living outside of the beautiful life God created for us. As we've noted, the problem is choice. But it is also a gift and God's great sign of love for us. We might, in a moment of emotional distress, yearn for a God who throws choices away and makes the right decisions for us. But that is not love. Love is two sides coming together on each individual's own volition. God has offered God's part of the relationship and asked us to join in, to live life. The choice, no matter how problematic it may appear, is yours, and that is God's gift to you. The red pill or the blue pill, adversity or prosperity, loving your neighbor or only loving yourself, life or death. Do you choose a relationship with God, one filled with uncomfortable emotions and unpredictable direction? Or do you choose to live apart from God, a life where perceptions become misguided and death becomes the way of life? Choose life today. Be God's children. Do God's work. Respond to God's Spirit. Awake the passions inside of you. Live. Choose. Be. Do. Respond. Awake. Live. William Paul Young believes God is a verb, not a noun. I am that I am. I will be who I will be. The character of the Spirit in the shack says, my essence is a verb. Verbs such as confessing, repenting, living, loving, responding, growing, reaping, changing, sowing, running, dancing, singing, and on and on. Unless I am, there are no verbs. And verbs are what makes the universe alive. I've set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life, says Creator God, so that you and your descendants may live. I leave you today with a few lyrics from the Switchfoot song, Thrive. I get the feeling that I'm in between a machine and a man who only looks like me. I try and hide it and not let it show, but deep down inside, I just don't know. Am I a man if I feel like a hoax? The stranger in the mirror has been wearing my clothes. No, I'm not all right. I know that I'm not right. A steering wheel doesn't mean you can drive. A warm body doesn't mean you're alive. Feel like I travel, but I never arrive. I want to thrive, not just survive. To survive is death. To thrive is life. Choose life. Amen.